6 factors that affect lifting. The Niosh lifting equation. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health in the USA identified factors that affected the amount of weight that could be safely lifted. It was created to help workplaces design and assess lifting and lowering tasks. This tool recommends workplace lifting conditions under which it is believed nearly all workers may be repeatedly exposed day after day without developing work-related low back and shoulder disorders associated with repetitive lifting tasks. Niosh identified 6 factors that influence the maximum recommended loads as the workers deviated from a perfect lifting situation. Let's now look at these 6 factors. In a perfect lifting situation, the load is close in to the body, at waist height, not moved much, infrequently lifted, moved with no twist, and moved with a good grip on the object. Horizontal reach, vertical height, movement, frequency/repetitiveness, asymmetry/twist, coupling, or grip. The farther out from the body the load is held, the higher the loads on the spine. This is known as the horizontal reach factor, or H. The farther the weight is lifted from the waist, the higher the loads on the spine or shoulders. This is known as the vertical height factor, or V. The greater the distance the weight is moved through, the higher the energy required. This is known as the movement factor, D. The more frequently the load is lifted, and the longer it is lifted for, the higher the stress on the body. This is known as the frequency or repetitiveness factor, F. The more twisted the upper body, the higher the stress is on the spine. This is known as the asymmetry or twist factor, A. Lastly, the more awkward it is to grip the object, the higher the effort. This is known as the coupling, or grip factor, C. Let's now look in more detail at each of these factors and see how they impact the load that can be lifted. The moving bars show how each factor can reduce the recommended weight. In the ideal lifting situation, the object is close into the belly button, 100%. As the load is lifted farther away from the body, the recommended weight drops to 60%, then to 40%. When the object is at maximum forward reach, the value is 0%. This means that no load should be lifted in this position. For the second factor, the object is lifted at belly button height, V factor equals 100%. If the object is lifted from higher or lower, the recommended load decreases. At knee level, the V factor is 90%. At floor level, the value is 80%. However, lifting from the floor puts high stresses on the spine. A lift from the floor needs further risk assessment. At shoulder level, the V factor is 80%. The V factor drops to 0% for an overhead lift. This lift is stressful for the shoulders, and loads should not be routinely lifted or lowered at this height. The third factor, D, is 100% if there is only a small amount of up and down movement of the load. As the movement up and down gets larger, the energy required goes up, and the D factor drops to 90%. As the movement up and down gets even larger, the energy required goes up again, and the factor D drops to 85%. The frequency or repetitiveness factor, F, is 100% for very infrequent lifts, such as 1 lift per hour, or 1 lift per day. As the frequency increases to 1 lift per minute, the F factor decreases to 90%. As the frequency increases to 5 lifts per minute, the F factor decreases further to 80%. As the frequency increases to 12 lifts per minute, 1 lift every 5 seconds, the F factor decreases to 0%. Workers should not lift under these high-frequency conditions. The fifth factor, A, asymmetry, is 100% when there is no spine twisting during the lift. With 60 degrees of twist, the A factor decreases to 80%, and if the twist is past 135 degrees, the A factor drops to 0%. The sixth factor, C, coupling, or grip quality, is 100% for easily grasped objects, such as a box with handles. If it is fairly easy to hold the object, the C factor drops to 95%. And if the object is difficult to grip, such as a bag of sand with no handle, the C factor drops to 90%. We have just seen how each of the 6 factors can reduce the maximum recommended weight lifted. The change in the values of each factor can be used to help recognize or identify lifting situations where there are MSD hazards, help predict the effect of changing the lifting situation by looking at how much each factor is improved. The actual values of the factors can be input to the Niosh lifting equation to calculate a maximum recommended weight as a part of a risk assessment. By recalling the 6 factors, when you are observing lifting and lowering, you should see lifting in a new way. There are many resources that describe the Niosh lifting equation in more detail available here, in your public library, or online. Learn more at msdprevention.com.